Hello, everybody. This is the Great Johanna speaking on my TikTok live stream. I just attempted to do a live on my YouTube. First of all, there's a 12-second lag on the YouTube lives, and nobody was watching. At least on TikTok, it sends me some people. Usually, after a minute or so, I'll get like 10 people, then 20, 30, 40, 50. I usually average around 30 people watching my live streams on TikTok. But it's good fun because there's interaction. People send me messages, people ask me questions. And I'm here today to talk about the European geopolitical leadership crisis. So, as soon as some more people join the live, oh, what day is it? I'm so bad at remembering what day it is, man. Oh, it's Tuesday. No, that's good because I plan to do my live streams every Tuesdays and Thursdays anyway. Hello, how are you doing? Yeah. Uh, as more people will pour into the live stream, I can start talking about the main topic. It's going to be about the European leadership drama, the leadership crisis, what we've seen in the past few days since J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, held his speech at the Munich Security Conference, which is a big deal in Europe. He left. He literally left the president of that conference in tears the next day. He was crying about the fact that the Europe no longer shares the American values. We are no longer a shared civilization, our Judeo-Christian heritage. No, because Europe has turned authoritarian and totalitarian. Europeans are cracking down on free speech in almost every country in ways never before seen, with the help of the very internet technologies that were supposed to make us speak our mind more freely and generate more interaction between civilians and so on. Um, I am truly appalled by what's happening in Europe. For example, I'll give you one bizarre example. Hey, Dazo, how are you doing? I'll give you one bizarre example of what's happening. The European Formula One races, the car races, if you say fuck as a driver and it's picked up by the audio system and broadcast, you can get a 30,000 euro fine for it, and the fines can stack up to 80,000 euros per driver. That's insane. That's the consequence of a world ruled by women. And that's what Europe is. Europe behind the scenes is ruled by women who hate their own people, who somehow want to sell Europe out to Africa, knowing that we don't even have a seat at the negotiations table, where the Americans and the Russians are now talking about peace in Ukraine. Europe is not invited. Ukraine isn't even invited. This is truly shocking that Europe today, did you see that picture at the Paris summit? You have like von der Leyen, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer was there, Mark Rutte, NATO chief, was there, former Dutch premier. I think Donald Tusk of Poland was there. I don't know all of them by name. There was a Spanish guy, Meloni from Italy was there. But notably, there were only like 8 or 9, 10 people or so. How many? 12? But there's 28 leaders in Europe. That means 2/3 of them were not invited at the Paris summit. Right? They weren't invited. Why? Because apparently Olaf Scholz, of course, was there. Apparently, these people, France and Germany, think they rule Europe together, and they think that Eastern Europe and Southern Europe and like Greece or so, or Romania, Bulgaria, all those countries, Estonia, those countries don't even matter, right? They're not part of the clique. Yeah, Europe has to stand up for itself and fast, but we can't do that with this leadership. My understanding, or the way I see it, is like the reason we have such weak leadership in Europe is because for 80 years the United States was offering us a shield of protection against Russia and China and so on. And I don't want to talk about the cost of it or the economics of it. I want to talk about the fact that this has led to Europeans slacking off. We have allowed ourselves to uh, dream about socialism, and we could dream about equality and so on in very far-fetched forms of these things, because we were always living under the umbrella of American protection. And on our own, however, with the leadership that has cultivated, we will not be able to withstand the world. We are not at all mentally or physically prepared to face the world on our own. It's almost as though we've become childlike, like children that were always, protected by daddy, Daddy America, or what do you call him, Uncle Sam, right? And now all of a sudden, Uncle Sam says he wants to sleep with Russia because Russia has big resources, right? Uh, Europe does not have these resources. If Europe couldn't capture Ukraine, then why doesn't the USA just make a deal directly with Russia, which is exactly what's happening now? Donald Trump decided he'd be better off. The USA will be better off if they just deal with the Russians directly rather than through Europe. And that's what's happening, which is kind of bizarre because oh, somebody oh somebody says you Katja says you wanted to join my link, but you couldn't respond to the live. Or, oh, maybe I gave the wrong link or so. I tried doing the live stream on my YouTube before, but it didn't work because there was no one there. Nobody was watching. And there's like a 12-second lag on YouTube. And then I started over, rebooted my live over here. So I started over. So I don't know. Maybe I sent the wrong link on Twitter. But I guess people will find it here nonetheless, right? So, yeah, we have horrible leaders, except from Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, Italy. I think they have better leaders than we have in the West, definitely, right? Like the unrealized potential of Europe is incredible. We must organize, yeah. Someone says you agree, or we mentally accepted not being number one for the first time perhaps ever. Yeah, it became our whole attitude to see ourselves riding the back seat of a car driven by the US or by China and so on, like children, right? And it has a consequence now that we don't know how to face the real world anymore. And what I expect now, if the United States continues on this new Trumpian path to leave Europe to itself, to leave Europe to its own devices, then the leadership we have got in Europe now will simply prove too weak to take charge, and they will have to be replaced with stronger leaders. And I think what might happen is that the whole notion of feminism in Europe may, because of that, dwindle and disappear, because these feministic men and these sort of women who like men to submit to them, right, like von der Leyen or so, are going to realize that they're not good enough, they're not competent enough, they're not aggressive enough. Trump is very aggressively simply seizing opportunities that are best for the USA. He doesn't care about Europe. Why should he? He's the president of the United States, not the president of Europe. But we in Europe, we have our many different little nations still. Although we can work together in something like the European Union, the European Union does not serve our interests, because the European Union was only interested in canceling our speech and so on. You know what I think is really happening? Because men like Olaf Scholz of Germany and Emmanuel Macron of France, because men like that are quite powerless on the international stage, they compensate for that lack of power by cracking down on free speech, by going after people for posting memes, right? It's the end of it. It's the end of our existence if we go along like that. If we do not replace our leadership, Europe will die. Europe will die because we are not seizing our opportunities. We are not building the competencies that we need for the future. We're not investing in the right things. We're investing, but in the wrong things. We're investing in censorship, but we should be investing perhaps in formulating a sort of strategic autonomy and independence from the rest of the world that we just don't have. The tears of that man, Heusgen, the president of the Munich Security Conference, it just said it all. I keep thinking of that image of that man crying, because it shows that Europe is immature. The European elites, the leadership that they produce, is all immature. They're not capable of dealing with hurty words. Then how the hell are you supposed to deal with bombs and poison gas, right? If words are too much for you. This is wrong, right? Right here. Someone says, yeah, Europe has become childlike. It's become right. Yeah, Europe had all the opportunities, but we were busy following Zelensky's orders. Geopolitically speaking, geostrategically speaking, Europe, Germany, and Europe should ally with the Russian resources. It's that old Halford Mackinder plan of the heartland, where if you control southern and western Russia combined with northern Europe, you would have the most powerful empire in human history. And yet, that opportunity, because we were so afraid of Russian family values and the Russians going against the LGBT, that we decided to forfeit that opportunity, and now Trump seized it instead. It's a genius move for the Americans that they dare to do this, that the Americans say, hey, you know what? Fuck Europe, losers. We'll just have a party with the Russians now, right? I totally get it from the American perspective, but from the European perspective, this is catastrophic disaster. We need better leaders very, very quickly, very soon, because we don't have the resources anymore, right? We will be totally dependent on purchasing resources from Russia or the USA. We will not have access to our own resources. And yeah, man, we're not going to make it like this. We need newer lead. We need new leaders. So this is what I would call the reaction, meaning we should do away with all this lefty feminist stuff that has, it's a sort of institutionalized weakness that we began to celebrate even. And I mean weakness in the sense of not being able to deal with the real world, you know, not being emotionally mature to deal with, you know, reality, how reality works. You can't just expect, as Olaf Scholz said, that we should always just cooperate and collaborate and always discuss everything with one another, because there are people who won't do that, and they will seize opportunities for themselves, like Trump is doing aggressively, right? And if you're not prepared to deal with that, if you don't understand that not everybody will want to be part of your club, right? And then at the same time you are banning or excommunicating people from your club who said bad words, who said mean memes, then you've lost the plot. You are sabotaging yourself. You're basically cornering yourself, right? You're cornering yourself and then blaming non-existent enemies. It's just you. J.D. Vance was totally right to blame the European elites. He said something like, literally, your threat, your biggest threat, it doesn't come from Russia or China. It comes from within yourself. And that is just the truth. It's just the truth, you know? Is there anyone in the ruling class on our side? Yeah, some of them. I've been to events where we had these old European aristocrats speaking. One of them was a descendant of the old German Kaiser, German emperor, and yeah, they're on our side. There are those who are on our side. They clearly understand we need to have a radical conservative morality, brought back to Europe. But they're not in power for some reason. These types, they are still there, right? They still have their wealth and their castles and their mansions and so on, but they don't seem to have any political influence anymore. That's the odd thing, is that the sort of men like Scholz and Macron, however they got to power, whatever their platform was, we need to figure out what it was. And I think it may have been leftist billionaire backers from the USA, basically like George Soros, who is a Hungarian man, but he lives in the US, right? Like George Soros funding the left in Europe, funding feminism in Europe. And without that funding, I think it would also just come to an end. I found out that George Soros has, since Trump rose to power and Trump is cracking down on the woke stuff, lots of George Soros's and his allies' foundations have been moved to Brussels now. So they're moving from Washington to Brussels, which is terrible. We don't want this stuff in Europe. It's the source of all of our problems, what I think is happening is that men like Soros and the other billionaires like him are deliberately funding subversion and self-sabotage and self-hatred in Europe in a way that could potentially bring about our end, right? And that's not true. If someone says something silly like Elon funds white supremacists and neo-Nazis, Elon doesn't do that. So they call, what do they call far right nowadays? if you clean your own patio, you're a white supremacist. If you like tidy kitchen cabinets, you're a Nazi, right? It's come to this where the people who are now in charge of our media are so deluded about reality. They call everything far right nowadays. Like not wanting your child to be murdered by immigrant knife wielders is far right. Apparently, you have to allow your kids to be murdered in the name of diversity, or you're a Nazi. Right? It's all so diluted. I can't really describe it very well. Like I would have to sit down and think about this very deeply for a long time to figure out what is really going on here. Is it possible that many on the left have lived such sheltered lives for so long, for 80 years at least since 1945? They are so unaccustomed to the reality of, say, things like bar fights or so, or things like violence in public transportation, that they've never witnessed any of this. They've never seen any of this, never been in contact with the real world. And now they're like, anybody who thinks you need cutlery to eat food hates Indians or something, right? That's just not how it works. That's not how the real works. Right. Do you think it's more intentional than delusion? I wonder, yeah. If it's intentional, then that just means they hate themselves and they hate their people, they hate their kind, and they favor replacing us with Africans and Indians and Muslims and so on, right? It's just horrible. I totally randomly, I saw a commercial for an American restaurant chain called Rando's, and the commercial was so extremely diverse, meaning the people shown were so extremely diverse. It just shocked me that, like, this isn't normal. It's just too weird. I think Elon has his problems because he favors Indian immigration to the USA. He wants to abuse the H-1B visa program and so on, or reform it so he can bring in more Indians. I think that's really bad. I felt that Elon was more like a traitor to the far right. I mean, I am a far right person, and I consider Elon Musk to be a traitor to our cause, not because he still favors mass immigration into Europe, of course, from India and so on. I didn't vote. I didn't spend years of my life arguing against the woke now to embrace billionaires and their IVF inseminated concubines. That's So I find it weird when people say Elon is funding white supremacy. No, he's not. He's replacing us with Indians. But he also does a lot of right stuff. See, I'm not the sort of person who will dismiss a character based on he does one thing wrong, therefore I hate everything about him. That's what leftists always do. They dislike one thing about you and they dismiss you as a person. I don't do that because I still like what Doge is doing, the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon and so on. I think that's fantastic. And the Trump crackdown on the woke nonsense so that women can win their gold medals again. Wow, that's the fact that was even necessary is crazy. So yeah, I like part of what Trump and Elon are doing very much. It's better than we got ever since a long time. It's just that Europe, I think, is doubling down on the trans crap. Europe is gonna wanna be like the aggressive trans answer to the awakened Trumpian administration. And I fear that things in Europe, therefore, are going to get a lot worse. And we've also been cut out of the Halford Mackinder dream of uniting Europe with Russia, or Germany with Russia. If that's not going to happen, and Europe is going to take a a turn to the far left, and we are already at the far left, then I think there's only one possibility. In the end, it becomes a struggle for life, a Darwinian struggle for life, uh, guerrilla warfare between civilians, between clans, fighting for their survival, trying to get access to whatever keeps us alive: land, food, water, right? Nice suit, huh? Yeah, I bought suspenders. Uh, I think it's gonna be part of my public appearance style to I got my little pin over here, little detail, and I got suspenders. I'm gonna try to make that my trademark look for my podcasting, because I guess everybody needs to have something to be recognizable, right? So I'm gonna do it this way. Truth is in the middle, right? You know the thing with the trans and the gay people and the LGBT and the queer. You know the thing with them is no one hated them until they started shoving that stuff down our throats everywhere you look. Every media channel, every TV series, every Netflix episode has them in it, and it's so aggressive that if you don't want to be like them, somehow you're far right or you're a Nazi. Um, Nobody cared that they existed. Nobody hated them for existing, and nobody was really bothered by what they were doing in their bedrooms, right? But it became a real big problem since they started pushing it onto children in the most bizarre, freakish manners, where you have these total freaks in the libraries reading books to children, right? And books that are they're reading to 3 year olds. They're reading books about my trans vagina or something, right? It's that stuff that people hate, that people begin to despise. It, I never hated anyone on the LGBT spectrum until that started. Now I hate the whole movement. I don't hate people in particular, but I hate the whole movement. Like, how dare you do this? It's subversion. It's You're harming people. You're harming people, and everybody knows you're harming people. And when we ask you to stop, you call us fascists, which makes people wonder about the real fascists, if they perhaps were the good guys. Like, be be careful what you wish for, because if you keep calling good people fascists, they may start to believe that fascism is good. This isn't true, by the way. Someone says if you don't reproduce enough, your economy will collapse without immigration. That's just not true. Who says we have to have a growing economy if the economy does not serve our real human needs anymore, and it's all about billionaire speculative assets? Then it's nonsense. It's just not how it really works. What we can do, for example, is focus on controlling a certain territory, land that we can defend, right? And then just live there. We can accept a smaller technology footprint in exchange for the preservation of our people, right? Uh, it's nonsense that women should produce 9 children per woman all the time. There may be episodes in your history where this has happened, and there will be very long episodes of history where this does not happen. Uh, we all know that, say, in the past, when women were having a lot of children, there were only 2 survivors out of 7 or so. And so, what it really means is that they had like a replacement rate of survivors. 2 or 3 children survived on average per woman. So that's a replacement rate survivalism, and that's what it usually was. It was always quite balanced. Now, uh, the idea that humanity must explosively and exponentially grow is something that Elon Musk believes in, but I think that's nonsense. I don't want a world with 100 billion people on it. I thought I thought 4 billion was a lot in 1990s, right? 2 billion is enough. 1 billion is enough. 500 million is enough. How many people do you really need to fit into Europe? You know, 2 billion. They want to put 2 billion people in Europe. Like, no. I think in Europe, maybe 2,000 years ago, we had how many? 70 million people, 50 million people total. You know, to me, it's much more important for people to have a high quality of individual life, where you can uh, go through the processes of life that are meaningful to you, right? Uh, Rather than being such a lemming all the time, to be a slave of the corporations, where you may have fancy stuff, right, and a lot of money, but nothing meaningful to spend it on, you know. My YouTube channel is called The Great Johannes, at The Great Johannes. I have a monetized YouTube account, but I've made, like, in the past year I made 93 cents. I try to post because I spend most of my time on YouTube, of course. So, but sorry, on TikTok. But I post my streams there. I post my longer form content there usually, or if I have longer videos, sometimes I will post it through there. But I think I don't know. I think YouTube's algorithm is so that it does not show my content to people who speak English. Because I live in the Netherlands, YouTube just shows me shows my content to other people who speak English in the Netherlands, which is a small crowd. They don't push it out to the international English speaking crowd. TikTok does. When I speak in proper English, my videos get sent out to other people who can understand English all over the world. So I get viewers from New Zealand and from Hong Kong who speak English, and if they speak English there, and India, wherever. I get people from all over the world listening to me, from Argentina and so on. And that's the interesting part about it all. Yeah, that TikTok gives you such a greater reach than YouTube has ever done for me. Even before TikTok, I was posting to YouTube, and I was glad if I got 100 viewers or so, right? Right. I think in our time we have so many people. By the way, even in India, the birth rates are dropping below the replacement rate of 2.2 or so, 2.1. It's below that now. They've got 2 children per woman on average, which is below the replacement rate. Yeah, my English is quite understandable. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the compliments. I lost my main account a few days ago. It was banned. 61,000 followers. I was able to appeal it. I'm gonna. This usually takes 7 days. Then finally, I would. In a few days, probably I will get the email whether or not I'm gonna get the account back. But still, the account I have was registered in the Netherlands, so it's not monetizable. I never made any much money off of TikTok. Sometimes I had some people send me like €2 on the live streams or so. Yeah, someone sent me a rose, for example. I get a few cents or so. I think a rose is worth half a cent or 2 cents or something like it, right? Which is all very nice. Maybe, but I wasn't in it for the money. I was always developing my speaking capacity. I was doing all this to express my thoughts. It was very important to me to develop my thinking about geopolitical issues and so on, world issues, and to practice my speaking to become a better speaker, which I feel I've succeeded in all those things. Not perfect, but I succeeded. From where I came from where I started 5 years ago to where I am now, it's a gigantic improvement. I'm very proud of that I succeeded in doing this. And then there comes another issue of okay, now I want to use my words to actually influence the reality. I was not really consciously trying to influence reality. Maybe sometimes some of my videos went viral, and it must have influenced the public sphere because I got 2 police reports filed against me uh, by one high-profile Dutch journalist, TV presenter Tim Hofman. Uh, Filed a police report against me. Anyway, that one was I was acquitted of that one. But the thing is, I do seem to reach people also in a bad way, but also in a good way. And I'd like to see more that my words lead to actual changes in the reality. And how would I do that as a speaker, as a podcaster? Should I enter politics? Should I start a movement? I was thinking I should start a sort of a social movement, not socialist, but a social movement, meaning I would call it the reaction or a counter movement, a sort of reactionary counter movement, the reaction, I would call it, to begin changing the reality we live in. Because ever since I was born and since I became politically conscious in my teenage years, I've always felt that this world is in decline and that it is deliberately so. As I was earlier during the live stream, I was speaking about this. And I mentioned that the European leadership that we have is so weak because they were always living under the certainty of US protection. And that breeds a totally different kind of leader, a leader who doesn't need to worry about his existence. We need leaders who are able to face the real world, right? Who are able to face reality uh, without fear. And we don't have those. We got Macron, Starmer, Scholz, Rutte, and you name them. These weirdos in the west of Europe who don't even care about their own people's survival. They just willingly replace us with Islamic or Indian immigration or African immigration. And the way they so aggressively pretend as though we're all equal and we're all the same. I mean, there's certain faces from certain races that I just can't stand looking at. It just I find them so weird. Like I do not really register them as fellow human beings, but rather as just a different species. Like they could be donkeys, or you know, I find horses nice to look at, and dolphins are nice to look at. But certain people from certain places, you see them and you recoil, like, what the hell is that? Oh, that's an equal. Okay, they're equal. You know, I don't want this world, man. I never liked anything about this multicultural diversity nonsense. I always felt very strongly we should be able to develop our own inner competencies, our own strengths, and like live life from within, from the inside out. So you have your own talents, your strengths, your desires, your dreams, and you begin expressing those verbally through action, through achievement, right? So you support your own people, your own heroes, right? You make your heroes your examples, and the people should follow them, right? Follow their example. And that way, then we expand outward and simply leave, how do you call it? Leave our mark, make our mark, make a mark this world, put a stamp on this world, right? To show the world we were here, right? And we're not doing that. We're basically in submissive mode, bowing down, always saying sorry, yeah, always saying yeah, we did slavery, we did colonialism, always feeling guilty, and never really saying like, hey, say that again, right? That's a totally different attitude, see? So we can't live like this anymore. And I welcome everybody else to just go ahead and commit suicide because that's what you're headed for. That's what you want. That's what you literally vote for. You vote for the death of your people. Volkstod in German, the people's death. I don't get it. You want to replace yourself with Africans and Muslims, and go ahead. Run into their knives. Maybe the rest of us who don't want this anymore can finally get rid of this evil, bad, sadistic, masochistic leadership, quote unquote leadership, not real leaders, and that we can then, you know, quit being bothered by everything, right? So that we can focus on ourselves, and that includes or requires us to be selfish, which is okay. We don't have to take care of the world. We're not the world's parents, and we're not children who need to listen to Kemi Badenoch or something like that, or Rishi Sunak. Who are these creeps and these freaks, man? We don't have to listen to these aliens telling us how to live and telling us who we are. First they say that in order to be British, you just have to live by British values. And then they say that cousin marriage is a British value and gang rape is a British value, right? Yeah, they should leave the West. Yeah, it'd filter our people, right? Without the weights of the useless masses, we can progress. Yeah, right. It's not our job to treat everyone equally. If you are stuck in this mode where you think you need to ask all of your friends for permission before you do something, then you're a slave. You're submissive. You need to take the lead yourself, and we as Europeans, we can do that. Maybe not all of us. Maybe the French will turn themselves into a sort of black African nation, and then we'll just say goodbye to France. But maybe other places, maybe we can take back Germany, right? Maybe we can ultimately work together with the Russians for their resources. And maybe we have our clans and our own tribes revived, right? Uh, Quit being afraid of being called racist, man. Who are these people calling us racist anyway? They are racist. They don't care about us. They want us dead and gone. They just care about our stuff, our so-called luxury. I don't even give a shit about the cars and the shiny toys that they care so much about, right? I just want to be left alone. I want our people to develop our physical, our mental strengths and talents and capabilities, right? And I want to be able to do this without any disturbances from the outside world telling us that we can't exist or something. Right? And why is it always that when white people finally do stand up for themselves, why is it that the whole world is afraid of us? We're not even a 10% minority of the globe. There's less than 8% of people in the world who are white people, and yet they'd be totally terrified if we said we just want to have Germany. They will freak the fuck out. They will be trembling in fear, like white people can't have their own country. You know, I don't get that. You know, it betrays something that maybe they deep down inside they know damn well that there is something superior about us that they don't have. Why else would they be so afraid of us all the time, every time again? Right? Because when white people get organized, we get things done. Yeah, come back to the ancient times. Yeah, it's nice that some people who've been following me for a long time managed to find my accounts again. I suppose even though my main account was banned, I'm trying to get it back. Uh, TikTok still pushes my video out to the similar sort of people who've been watching it. So the TikTok algorithm is so that the number of followers you have on your account is irrelevant, really. What's more relevant is the content itself, and that's a good thing because I've got good content. Yeah, it's funny that those who brought modernity and high technology to the whole world for free should now somehow pay for everybody else's reparations after you stole our technology. You know, everything can be turned around. You know, I noticed that these brown people, they live in a bubble, man. They live in their own little world. They don't want to see outside of it. Maybe they can't, right? Yeah. No. Yeah, is the USA trying to be the new Roman Empire? Yeah, maybe. But then what should Europe be? Europe can then be the aging, dying Greek civilization, or maybe something newer. Europe could be something newer, and I think that's what we're going. We're just going to do something newer, but this requires new leadership, man. Not this nonsense anymore. All right, I'm going to do something absolutely shocking. I'm going to sing you a song. Let's see. I got a whole couple of them. Oh wait, there's the illegal song. I'm gonna do the illegal one if I can find it. Not this one, not this one, not that one. Hold on, I'm browsing through my papers. Not this one, not that one. Not that one. It's the last one, right? No, nope. Here. Rhodesians Never Die by Clem Tolet. It's a white guy. Here's the story of Rhodesia, a land both fair and great. On the 11th of November, an independent state. This was much against the wishes of certain governments, whose leaders tried to break us down and make us all repent. But we're All Rhodesians and we'll fight through thick and thin and we'll keep our land a free land. Stop the enemy coming in. We'll keep them north of the Zambezi till that river's running dry. And this mighty land will prosper for Rhodesians never die. I'm not very good at it, but because I'm under stress doing a live stream and then singing a song anyway. I think I actually produced a Dutch version once. I sang it about the Dutch farmers during the farmers' protests. That went viral then back in the day, a long time ago. But it's a catchy song, a catchy tune. Yeah, if we would just write new lyrics for it, we could just sing that in the streets, right? Today I found out that the continent of Africa was not named after black people. During the Roman times, there were North African tribes, like the Amazigh and so on, who were white people. And one of those tribes was called the Africa. So the continent of Africa is named after a white tribe. I'm not going to join the FED because I think I'm too radical, and also I think they're Zionist. I can't support that. I'm much more of a reactionary, and I was thinking of starting a sort of reactionary movement in Europe. Uh, so maybe I should give some examples of how I perceive the reaction. Let's just focus on some topics like you have uh, the gay marriage, for example. In a reactionary world, we would completely annul such marriages, even the ones that have been blessed in the past. They would be annulled. And you would have, for example, wherever they turn churches into hotels, the reactionary movement would demand those hotels be turned back into churches. People would have to go back to church on Sunday mornings, right? But we would also change the Bible. The biblical interpretation would be, if it would be deemed too far left or left leaning, you would change that into something, ultra conservative. Yeah, it's basically the cleanup crew. After the children have had their birthday party, the adults come in and they clean shit up. That's the reaction, basically. We're going to clean shit up. We're going to clear them all out. Right? I'm not going to start a political party, but I'm going to start a movement that may have many political parties attached to it. The goal would be to overthrow the whole cultural complex that is allowing these feminist men to be in charge in the first place. And I think it's just money. If we would somehow cut the funding from the far left, right? Meaning, if we would prevent Soros from funding the far left and such, then a lot of it would just disappear like snow melting in the sun. Yeah, civil war. Civil war with the intent to establish a new society that looks like a very old society, with a warrior caste, an aristocratic caste, and a priestly caste. And the priests would be the most powerful. The aristocrats would be the front-facing leaders, the public leaders, and the warrior caste would defend it all. And then you've got the peasants, of course, who wouldn't be taxed as much as they are today. By the way, they would actually have it better. Total revolution, yeah, yeah, but it's not called a revolution, right? Revolutions is for socialism. What we are going to do is a reaction, a reactionary revolt. In fact, we have had this before. In the United States, you had the American Civil War. I think was a reactionary war, where they basically beat back a lot of the progressive liberal progress. Yeah, we're going to beat back progress. Yeah. right. So I started my new channel. I have a new TikTok account also at johannes.jmk. I'm going to start rebuilding my followers there because that account will allows me to monetize. I managed to get an account from the UK, which when I get that to 10,000 followers, which usually takes less than a month, then I should be able to monetize it and I can start making a little bit of money off of this TikTok stuff, right? Yeah. Let's see if I can sing. They can send their men to murder, and they can shout their words of hate. But the cost of keeping this land free can never be too great. For our men and boys are fighting for the things that they hold dear. And this land and all its people will never disappear. 'Cause we're all Rhodesians and we'll fight through thick and thin. We'll keep our land a free land, stop the enemy coming in. We'll keep them north of the Zambezi till that river's running dry. And this mighty land will prosper, for Rhodesians never die. We'll preserve this little nation for our children's children too. For once you're a Rhodesian, no other land will do. We will stand tall in the sunshine with the truth upon our side. And if we have to go alone, we'll go alone with pride. Imagine having a song that good about your country and your people, man. Yeah, it's called Rhodesians Never Die. It's an illegal song. It's one of the best songs ever written for the white nationalist movement. But and the guy who wrote it probably wasn't even far right. He was probably a bit of a lefty socialist. But in those days, even the leftists cared about their people, and that's the difference with today. Today's leftists they want their own people to go extinct and die out, right? I had cold sores, so I have a little bit of damage on my lips as I healed. I had a week of a heavy flu last week, and it got better, but it leaves you with damage. Right? It takes a little while for it to heal. So, what do you think of the Afrikaners getting refugee status in the USA? That's weak. We should have armed them. We should have armed the Afrikaners and allowed them to establish their own state, just like Israel. Israel has its own state in the Middle East. Why can't we support the Afrikaners to have their own state there and be well and have power, right? Is it Israel behind the lefties? No, actually, no. Israel is behind the Zionist right, whereas people like George Soros are behind the lefties. Like the Jews are also split among left and right, you know? No, South Africa was empty land. The Dutch arrived in 1652 and they were the first inhabitants, so it's our land. The the so-called Khoisan, who are supposed to be natives from there, they didn't arrive until around after 1700 because they were from the north. From the sea to about 1,000 miles inland, that whole stretch was empty land. Nobody was there. And then the white people and the British came and so on, and they built that land. It's their country, you know. It's like imagine Africans going to an empty forest in Siberia and they build their own country there. Now that would be their own country. But Africans migrating to Paris, you're moving into somebody else's house, man. That's not yours. South Africa was empty. The Dutch were the first to arrive there. I just told you. From the sea to about 1,000 miles inland, it was empty land. Not even the Khoisan were living there. They were living further north. I just told you. What is it with people, man? Is there something wrong with your brains? South Africa was empty land. It's ours. The same with Australia. Southern Australia was empty land because the Aborigine black people, they live in the north of Australia, in the desert area. The south part of Australia was practically empty. There was no one there. It's ours. You know, Like I said, Africans can go to Siberia if they can find an empty forest there and they want to build a country there. Go ahead, but you have to do it yourself. See, this is the thing that white people always do. We do it ourselves. We go somewhere, empty land, we build it up from nothing, right? We built the first roads in Africa. Do you understand that? Because before the Europeans got to Africa, Africans only had footpaths. Europeans were the ones who built the first roads. Get that, man. It's just insane. We were the first to build railroads. We were first to build waterways because the Africans didn't even bother to invent canoes or something. Nothing. The Native Americans had canoes, but the Africans did not have canoes. The sub-Saharan Africans didn't have canoes. They didn't have furniture. They didn't have the wheel. You know, it's just the list goes on and on and on. It's just baffling, mind-boggling how you can be so backward with all the resources that are there. Don't they always complain about the resources? They had so much gold and iron and copper. They could have made whatever they wanted. Bronze. They didn't do nothing with it. They didn't even look for it. They had no need for it. It's not our problem. No, Africans didn't have boats. They had nothing. Yeah, you're just projecting, Abdul, or whatever you're called. The difference between white leftists and other right-wing leftists is the white leftists, they want to be friends with everybody. They just want to be liked by everyone. And the right-wing leftists, they just want to be stronger. They want to build their competencies and their talents and so on. And they don't want that nonsense to get in the way where you always have to care for everybody. Everybody, especially when they're not advancing themselves. And they expect you to do it for them. And then they're angry because you have supremacy and, right? They're angry that you know more, but then when you teach them, they're angry that you have supremacy, right? Colonization was good for everyone colonized. They were all upgraded. They were basically primitives dying of simple diseases because they hadn't invented medicine. So thanks to colonialism, they got education, medicine, logistics, transportation, modern equipment, agriculture, right? It was a benefit to them, and they should pay us. We demand repayment. They want reparations. We want repayment for everything we've given them. Man. It's all nonsense, man. It was so good. There's now 1.4 billion Indians. Yeah. No, we cured their diseases. That's the reason why their numbers started to increase. How can you be living in such denial about yourself and the past, man? It's just so weird. Right. If we had been the monsters, they say they wouldn't be here using our technology. Exactly. We were the good guys. We didn't steal anything because you didn't have anything. We found the gold in your own soil. You never looked for it. Now it's ours. We're done with this. These debates are over. This play you do where you try to get at our feelings or something. Go take it back to India or something, wherever you're from. Man. It's not stealing because property rights are invented by white people. White people came up with the concept of private property. You didn't have private property. You had no property of these places. It's not stealing if you would move to an empty forest in Siberia, you cut down a few trees and you build your own house. That's not stealing. What happened to me? I grew up in your world. I think there's a lot of white men who will never be as outspoken as I am, but when they hear me speak, they end up agreeing with me because we grew up in that feminist world that hates white men. And I never liked this world at all. And I'm not going to die in this one. This world will disappear before I do. I guarantee it. Yeah, Europe should have allied with Russia, but now the Americans cut the chase, right? Trump's America is going to do with Russia what Europe should have done with Russia. We should have shared the resources and then we would have been all powerful. But we have these silly, stupid, submissive leaders like Schultz and Macron. You know, they're not going to save us. They're not going to do anything for us. Yeah. And yet they're all speaking our language. Yeah. You know why that is? Western languages have a far larger vocabulary than any native African language. Right? So if you want to express yourself in certain modern concepts, you can't use African languages to do so. You have to speak a European language. I don't support any political party in the Netherlands. It's all the ones that I share most values with are Zionists, and I never understand why every right wing group in Europe is Zionist, and every left wing group is pro Palestine. None of them are just pro Europe, and that's what I am. I'm just pro European. That's why I call myself the reaction, or the movement I envision would be called the reaction, so that we can, push back against all that nonsense. We need to refocus on ourselves. Allow ourselves just to aggressively pursue whatever's best in our own interest. Yeah. The Telegram group. Yeah, I started one called "Join the Reaction." Yeah, it is. I started it, but it's just an anchoring point. Yeah, I'm just going to start there. It's a public channel. Start posting there, and then I'm going to try to build up a following there as well. Throw it in the chat. I could type it out. I don't know if I'm allowed to type this. It's a very basic channel. It just has one video. Or yeah, join the reaction on Telegram. It's just a starting point. I imagine it's going to be like a public channel, and then through it, I hope to meet people also that can support me in the background. There will then be private channels as well, where the leadership can talk. I do speak Dutch on my Dutch channel and German on my German channel. So what do you want? Yeah, I think this one has a chat. I opened the channel there. It has a chat on it, right? Uh, yeah. The word nationalism comes from natio, which means birth. The fact that you were born, all right? This outfit represents, I don't know, right wing podcaster or something. Doesn't really mean anything yet. It's just what I wear. Let me look up the statistics, by the way. So there are 25 million people in the world who can speak Dutch and 5 million who speak Swahili. So Dutch is still more relevant than Swahili. But of course, if you look at the language family, the Germanic languages, it's like top notch, right? Yeah, welcome back. You know what the saddest thing is in the whole world? People who dislike me who stay in the chat. I never do that. When I browse TikTok and I see people I don't like, I just move on like instantly. I don't listen to people I don't like. But here you have all these people listening to me who don't like me. You know what I think that means? I think Daniel is gay. He's in love with me. I've been speaking for an hour now. I know I'm not super interactive at the moment, but I'm recovering from the heavy flu last week. But I thought I'll just go on for a little bit longer. Is there a strategy to save Europe? Yeah. Uh, the reaction. I've been speaking about this the whole time. It's a conservative counter movement that goes basically we beat back progress because progress between quotes, right? It's not real progress. What's progressive really about all the nonsense we've been fed about castrating your children, promoting LGBT, the transgenderism especially is so damaging. Why is that progress? It's not progress. What kind of progress is that? It's the progressive liberation from yourself. Oh, see, they want us. They want to uproot us and cut ourselves off from, you know, our blood and our soil, right? Oh, I have to solve a puzzle before. All right. I had to do a verification or something. Yeah, my main account was banned by the way, but I still hope to get it back. I might get it back in a few days. It takes about 7 days before them to complete the to review the appeal. Right. So in the basis of it all, the central problem is that Europe has become feministic and matriarchal, ruled by old women in the behind the scenes often. Um, leaders like Schultz and Macron and so on, they listen to old women somewhere. I think the real leaders are old women behind the shadows, behind the curtains, and that's it. They're just incompetent in a way that they would rather sacrifice their own people, watch their own people die out and be replaced, than to stand up for ourselves. That's that's it. All we need to do is overthrow the feminist elements in Western Europe, especially do away with it and replace it with a new kind of dominant patriarchal way of thinking, more masculine, or more allowing elements of warrior cult. Right. So instead of playing sports in the sports arena, we would be promoting our heroes in the real world, right? Real warriors, right? um I'm just thinking through a lot of things, right? I spend a lot of time thinking about things, obviously, to figure shit out. But I've also come to a sort of stage in developing my own thinking where I realize, okay, I've got enough ideas to implement, and now it's time to figure out how to implement them, right? I think Daniel is so upset because the average white woman is taller than him, right? I think I always speak English on my English channels. I didn't change my language, you know. The ideal result for the German election would be for the German people to revolt against their government. You know, voting for that party AFD, led by a lesbian woman who lives in Switzerland with her brown Indian girlfriend, is not it, is it? You know, but they say the right things. Yeah, they always say that. They say that about Candace Owens. Oh, she's a black woman, but she says everything you believe in. Yeah, it's not about what they say. It's about the fact that Kemi Badenoch, for example, or Rishi Sunak are not really British people ethnically. Right? We make the distinction between the passport nationality and the ethnicity. You know, this is about, you know, are you willing to invest in your own people to make them strong again, to make them proud, to make them confident, so they can live without stress and worry, and even facing pain and death if they had to, but knowing that they're doing this for the glory of their people, right? That would be a far better situation than what we have now. This submissive pain where people are ill. You know, people are ill. The whole society is a clown show, and in order to overthrow that, you don't just vote in elections. You don't just vote for another party. Well, we voted for Wilders, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. The PVV is the largest party. They won the elections. He wasn't even allowed to be the premier, even though he won the elections. You know, and now he's all about, yeah, we should send more funds to Ukraine. So he just supports. He loves Israel more than the Netherlands. So voting doesn't work if the people you vote for are just lying to your faces to get your votes, and then they use those votes for completely different toward completely different goals and outcomes than what you wanted or what's best for you. At some point, you might even realize that in a democracy, people just selfishly vote for their own interests, right? They vote for uh, the money they can get, but they don't vote for their neighbor's well-being, right? Imagine an election where you have to vote for your neighbor's well-being. It would be a completely different election, but people don't vote that way. They vote for themselves. In a democracy, people ultimately always figure out that they can use the vote to bankrupt the state and to bankrupt big businesses and so on. Now, that's wrong. Therefore, we would be literally better off doing away with democracy and installing an aristocracy. You know, I've been hearing Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, speak about democracy, democracy. He always says our democracy, our democracy. He means the democracy of the Western world, or maybe even internationally. And Olaf Scholz, when he speaks about democracy, notice the way he speaks about it is almost as though that means democracy is something where we always have to agree with each other, and there's a certain right way of thinking, right? It's a leftist way of thinking, but the right way. And everybody who doesn't see it their way is uneducated or just wrong or fascist or bad. And it doesn't occur to me that they are simply wrong. It doesn't occur to them that they are simply wrong, right? They are simply wrong because they, coming out of this shelter, a very sheltered life, are unable to perceive, right, the other point of view because they've never lived in the real world. They come from these somewhat rich households, right? People like Olaf Scholz, I think, are deeply afraid in terms of their character. They are very fearful men, little men, because he's small, right? He's like 5'1" or something, like a munchkin, and they cannot perceive themselves as independent actors. They see themselves only as always being embedded within a group, and we do everything together always, which I think is unhealthy. You need to have some confidence to go at it alone. That's what the USA did. The USA and Trump, they didn't bother to consult the Europeans about Russia. Trump seized an opportunity. He seized hey, we can get better deals with Russians now. Russia has resources that the USA needs for its AI data centers. So they just go and sleep in Russia, right? And then Europe is like crying all about it and like wondering what happened. Yeah, well, you got fucked. That's what happened. But you let it happen because you were naive. You thought that the Americans have to consult us, they have to collaborate with us. No, they don't, right? And neither do we. We don't have to live like that anymore. We don't have to consult the whole world whenever we want to do something that's best for us, right? That's in our best interest. We don't have to trade Islamization of Europe for oil. We can just figure something else out, right? We could go to war, right? War is always an option, right? It makes no sense that we are throwing away our future for absolutely minimal benefits that plainly our own leaders in Europe are our biggest enemies at this point. They're dangerous and they're evil. They're twisted, they're sick, they're disturbed, right? We have to change something about this. There's a possibility that there is like AI bots in my chat. By the way, I started having this suspicion that you can run an AI chatbot to comment on people's TikTok videos, and it's just programmed to be nasty, so they stay that way the whole time. How else can these people be human? A human being wouldn't do this, right? There's a lot of this is one way to use AI today is to use it as a sort of propaganda weapon, where you have them play the troll online. So you don't need to believe anything you hear or see. I think Islam is an absolute sickness. It's so disgusting. It, it's a religion born of mentally ill people. You can't possibly be serious that you should live that way. It's a matriarchal weirdness mixed in with a sort of war doctrine. Always feeling the victim, always feeling bad with low self-esteem and so on. That is not the European way. We Europeans, we need to feel, confident, competent, proud, aggressive, dominant, but not miserable like the Muslims, man. They always feel miserable. Even if they would make the whole world Islamic, they would still feel inferior. That's not a way to live, man. We can't be like that. Yeah, it's always the same style of attack, right? So that's why I figured, maybe it's a bot or something. They send them my way to see if it would demoralize me, but it doesn't. They must be terrified of my speech. I mean, they laugh at me because they say nobody listens to you, but then they send me bots to demoralize me, and it doesn't even work. So all right. All right. I've been speaking for more than an hour, and that's when I usually run out of things to say, or I lose my motivation to keep talking to the screen over here. Uh, and so I'll see you next time, probably Thursday or so. I'll be back here. And meanwhile, well, nothing really new. You'll just see me post new videos on this on the other account as well. So see you there, and have a nice evening.